This happened over 20 years ago. I was driving back home with my girlfriend at the time. It was Christmas Eve, and my mother's family used to hold a large celebration at my aunt's house in Estacada. This was my girlfriend's first time meeting my extended family, but she got on quite well with them. We spent the majority of the afternoon and evening talking, playing poker, opening presents, and drinking an assortment of adult beverages. My girlfriend had been quite inebriated by the time we had to leave, therefore, I'd be driving us home. It was around 11 p.m. or so. I was driving my girlfriend's car along Highway 211. Now, this stretch of road is surrounded by farms and dense patches of forest, and parts of it are unlit. But nothing to fear. I grew up in this area, so I knew this road like the back of my hand. The both of us were just driving and talking away, just two young lovers making the most of our moment together. There is a portion of the highway that descends down an enormous hill before crossing Deep Creek. Surrounding both sides of the road are thick forests. There are no lights. The only thing we could see was the area directly in front of our headlights. I drive down the hill, cross the bridge, and uphill through more forest. It's as the highway starts to flatten out that it happens. Something sprints across the road so suddenly that I almost hit whatever it was. I slam on the brakes. I turn to my girlfriend and ask her if she saw it. She confirmed that she had, but she couldn't make out what it was. Maybe it was a coyote, as they are a fairly common sight in this area, but something felt off about it. Whatever it was that ran in front of the car disappeared into the woods next to the road. Coyotes don't usually just dart out in front of cars, not like that anyway. So, for some reason, I decided to check it out. I turned the car around and switch on the high beams to better light up the forest in which this thing had vanished in. I step out of the car and walk towards the woods. I don't see anything, but now it feels like perhaps I'd made a grave error. My heart is pounding and the hairs on the back of my neck are standing at full attention. But I still don't see anything unusual in the trees. Suddenly, the car's horn blasts. It's not a beep 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 that you get if, say, your driver or passenger wanted you to hurry up and get in the car. No, this was a long, blaring beep. I walk back into the car and ask my girlfriend why she leaned on the horn like that. She said nothing. Instead, she pointed to a spot about 50 feet from where I was standing. I looked over in that direction, and that's when I saw it. Surely this was the thing that had ran in front of our car. It was a man. He was completely naked. His skin was covered in dirt and mud, and in one of his hands, he was holding a hatchet. He looked back at us, and then he smiled and waved to us, just before turning around and walking back into the forest. Needless to say, we got the hell out of there. Once we were safely driving again, my girlfriend explained what had just happened. While I was trying to look for the man in the area he initially vanished in, he circled back around and came from another spot in the forest, beyond my car headlights. My girlfriend had seen something out of the corner of her eye, and that's when she saw him. Before she honked the horn, he was walking towards me, his hatchet raised as if he was about to strike me. We called the authorities once we got safely back home, but they never found anybody, or they did and just didn't tell us. But the officer we spoke to explained his theory. The man was obviously looking to ambush unsuspecting lone travelers for Lord knows what reason. We all agreed that my girlfriend's quick thinking saved my life, as it let my potential killer know that I wasn't alone. I moved back into the area recently, so I now drive that highway often. No naked hatchet man sightings yet, but I can tell you that I'm definitely extra vigilant now, especially near Deep Creek. For context, I'm a 22-year-old male and I live in a large city in the Midwest. Now, I drive for Lyft while putting myself through trade school. I drive for other similar companies, but that's besides the point. I have many horror stories from those as well, but I'll tell those another time. It was Christmas Eve of 2020. I was out running Lyft for a few hours before heading to my mom's with my new baby and wife. Nothing special going on for the night, just the usual. I get a ride request. It was a pickup from this kinda lower income apartment complex. No big deal. I arrive and find my passenger. He has all his belongings, several boxes of stuff. Now, my car is a 2006 Chevy Impala, so it's not too big. We get all his stuff loaded up, barely, and we are on our way. During the ride, he is crying, saying his girlfriend was cheating on him, and he had walked in on them earlier that night. He couldn't stay there because it was her name on the lease. So, I was taking him to a hotel. Now, in my city, we have a street that is well known for having vices, hookers, drugs, gangs, weapons, and shady motels, the works. We get to the motel, and he asked me to wait for him to check in and get his key. No problem, man, I say. I'll confess, I break the rules a little when it comes to Lyft. I have a gun hidden in a concealed holster to the underside of my driver's seat for protection. Reason being, driving Lyft and other contract apps, I've had knives and guns pulled on me, as well as people trying to fight me, rob me, and all kinds of other things. But like I said, another time. This motel was on that street I mentioned before. Homeless people were everywhere. There was a dude on the far corner of the complex that still had a needle in his arm, passed out against the building. I'm a big fan of true crime and horror narration, so I'm on edge. He gets his key. The whole motel is ground level, so to help this guy out, I drive to his door. As I mentioned before, he had a lot of stuff, so I started to help him unload it. On my second trip getting stuff, I saw a guy come out of the room just to the south of my car, followed by two ladies. They came up to the room I was next to. One of the ladies pounded on the door, then opened it. That's when I saw the guy raise a freaking shotgun out of his long coat and storm into the room. The two ladies followed him, slamming the door behind them. Following that, I heard a lot of yelling and shouting. I was just waiting for shots to ring out. Out of nowhere, my passenger came up behind me saying, "I can take this, man. Go ahead and take off. Have a Merry Christmas." And he gave me a cash tip. I didn't even notice he took the boxes out of my hands or slid a $5 bill in my pocket. I was frozen. I knew what may have been going down in that room. I had to leave, or at least get to where I can get my gun. I knew the guy and both the ladies saw me, and I know they knew I saw the gun. I had to get out of there. You know, no witnesses. I got to my car and sped away quickly. I got a block or so away and called the cops. I gave them every detail. After I got off the phone with the police, I signed out a Lyft. I hadn't made much money, but I was done. I got a call later that night. The cops investigated. They never found the gunman or the women, and they never answered the door I saw them come out of. The occupants of the room they went into said nothing had happened and that I was full of shit. Well, I know what I saw. So, to the gunman I saw with the shotgun, who I'm sure was making a statement to someone about a debt, let's not meet again. This happened shortly before Christmas on a Friday afternoon, shopping in a small, local Walmart with a male friend and my kids. I absolutely loathe holiday crowds and wouldn't even have bothered to get out if I weren't at the ketchup sandwich state of needing groceries. I'm in the pharmacy section, attempting to pick a hair dye with both kids in my push basket. My friend is in a different section, answering a work call on his cell. My son, kindergarten age, is smiling over my shoulder, and my daughter, who is a toddler, says, "Creepy." I turn around, and there is a middle-aged man behind me, maybe 20 feet back, just looking at my daughter. She is fairly beautiful, so people are always commenting on her looks and talking to her, but this felt different. I was instantly uneasy. I left the pharmacy department and headed towards the grocery because I needed things there. This friend and I have those bond bracelets that let you buzz the other person when you're thinking about them, so I gave him 3 rapid buzzes, which is our code for "call me." My friend materializes at my side, which somewhat calms me. I casually mentioned the man that had appeared behind me, but because I was off guard, I hadn't really looked at him. just enough to notice that his looks were somewhat nondescript, and he was chubby and short. My friend looks at me and says, "I noticed him walking behind you when you were headed to the pharmacy," which does nothing for the nervous feeling in my stomach. My friend then comments that if he sees the creepy guy again, he'll tell the guy what's up. A while later, we're walking through the refrigerator aisle, contemplating coffee creamer flavors and whatnot, when my toddler again pipes up, this time to say, "Santa." I turn around, and I shit you not, the creepy guy has gotten one of those Santa heads and put it on, and is once more standing behind me, this time waving at my children. On high alert now, I speed walk the best I can with a large basket full of groceries and children and make my way to the front. My friend had missed his moment and is too busy following me to say anything to the guy. I am practically running to the front. I find an empty lane and start shoving the crap I want to buy onto the conveyor belt. The cashier begins scanning my things and notices how shaken I look and asks about it. I proceed to tell her about the guy, and she asked if I can see him. My male friend, who is relatively tall, begins to scan the store for the guy and says he is standing by the grocery exit. The cashier alerts the manager. At this point, we just want to get out of there, relatively unbothered, and go home. The manager heads in the direction of the grocery exit, and we head to the other exit, and the creepy guy meets us outside, once again, attempting to make eye contact with my toddler. My male friend, who has now found his moment, puffs up his full 6'5" and 250-ish frame and roars, "Back the fuck off," which the creepy guy does immediately. As we are running out to the car, the manager and 2 other employees approach the creep, which is the last we saw of him. I throw the stuff into the trunk while my friend is buckling the kids into their seats, and we hightail it out of there. I stopped hyperventilating shortly after that, but it is now May, and this is still on my mind. Honestly, he may have been mentally ill. In the area we were shopping, there is an outpatient hospital that treats patients of the mentally ill, substance addicted, and potentially dangerous to themselves varieties. Nonetheless, I am glad my friend reacted the way he did, and I am somewhat embarrassed at myself for not reacting in a similar fashion. I brag about being an aggressive mama bear, but the way that man approached me from behind left me unprepared and a little stunned. So, holiday motivated grocery creep, let's not meet again.